Hello, everybody. I hope you're keeping safe. My name is Prashant, and today we are going to talk about how we are going to use an integrated approach for XDR, SIEM, and SOAR to modernize security operations. Let's get started. I would like to reiterate the Microsoft Core Security Operations vision, in which we are very committed to ensure we provide great first-party tools for your overall protection, detection, response and remediation strategy for your security operations. I would like to highlight as one of the great assets which Microsoft has is the combination of its entire threat intelligence, which is the integration of 200 plus global consumer and commercial services, which generate immense threat intelligence data. We literally process around 8 trillion plus signals on a daily basis. And all of these signals combined really give us unparalleled visibility across the overall threat landscape happening across the globe. And this entire threat intelligence data empowers our security solutions in various frames and shapes, whether these are vector-based security solutions, ATP, EDR, CASPs, or XDR or SIEM SOAR. Now, starting with the basics, how does success looks like when we talk about modern security operations? We should look at a combination of depth tools and breadth tools. Depth tools bring in detailed insight which can help reduce the overall load on the security operator, which otherwise in lack of that depth tool which can generate great insight, security operations have to really understand each and every aspect of how these solutions are generating signals and then try to correlate them. Solutions like popular solutions where users are doing work across identity, email, applications, endpoint, hybrid infrastructure. So all of these solutions, there are great depth solutions available from Microsoft, which can help lower the overall volume of alert data and generate great insights. At the same time, for the remaining part, you need Brett's solution as well, like a modern SIEM, like Azure Sentinel, which can really integrate both these elements together to give you great insight. A pure play strategy of just using a Brett's tool may not work out. Otherwise, what will happen is if every event data will get collected at the same level, the amount of the data gravity which you're sitting on and the amount of correlation effort trying to understand the various solutions, how they work, what exactly is an alert, incident, how to do correlations, understand insight will become a very heavy job. And that's where you're trying to ability to generate an insight will be very, very difficult. So a combination of great depth and breadth solution will help you better an overall security operations strategy. Let's go further and dig deep into security operations. Security operations is a very human intensive job. Security analyst is a human and people are operating SOC. Attackers are also human and they are launching attacks. They are determined, they have a different set of motivations. From a security operations perspective, the things which matter are mean time to acknowledge and to respond to an attack, or MTTR, which is the time it takes to remediate a particular situation and get the adversary out. That's some of the core things which matter at this layer. Now, in a classic SIM model, the way a lot of SOC has been traditionally organized is that we will collect vast amounts of data from the entire different infrastructure on which we are sitting on, like security, network, infrastructure, application, PaaS services, endpoint, server data, SaaS applications, information at time as well. All of this data is collected and all of these events are aggregated at the SIM level. That's a classic SIM model. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a lot of data, we equally have the right kind of insights, because once we have the data, fundamentally figuring out how to make use of them, how do we really understand, what exactly is an irregular pattern in a particular application, understanding, how exactly an application is used, what exactly is anomaly, how things happening across different vectors or solutions are resulting into something you should be worried about. Now all of these challenges do exist, and oftentimes analysts are always worried about what exactly should I be figuring out, what should I be monitor, what are the use cases. These are the classic challenges which have been norm of the day in a classic SIM model. Microsoft approach to bringing in the Defender approach. Defender is our XDR solution, which essentially is an integrated ecosystem of tightly coupled security solutions, which manage areas like identity, endpoint security, application security, SaaS service security, infrastructure security, and all of those things. These are the best of the breed solutions. They have been fundamentally integrated in a way that they are tightly, understand each other. There is event normalizations. They are integrated through API, and they are able to understand each and every aspect of what they are governing and generate deep insights and hand it over to the SIM. So the overall effort of the solution is to reduce the effort and the time which a SOC analyst would have to spend. Otherwise, if they are sitting on the raw data in the underlying services, the XDR is managing. So so there's a lot of work reduction which an XDR does, because it fundamentally understands through the security solutions the way solutions have to work and what exactly to look for, because the heavy lifting has already been done by the Microsoft engineering to reduce the overall effort. Now that signal, if goes to SIM, and the SIM can then correlate the remainder of the data to help generate the insight. Now you can also bring in a modern SIM here like Azure Sentinel, which also can integrate with the data which you are generating, the data which is coming from the Microsoft Defender XDR, and the remainder of the data which you would like to ingest. Azure Sentinel is a modern SIM, works at the powered by the Microsoft Azure cloud, works at the cloud scale. It's literally a security data lake which is powered by the most modern tools, including powered by the Azure ML and AI. It has inbuilt UEBA as well. So it has all the niche stuff which helps it to really understand the insights and respond to the latest generation of threats and understand these complex patterns. That is what part. And both the solutions, Microsoft Defender XDR and Azure Sentinel SIM, are both powered by the Microsoft Threat Intelligence. We discussed about the intelligence security graph, which processes 8+ signals in a day. And definitely it makes these solutions and the insight which come out of it pretty powerful. Now, across both these solutions, security orchestration and automation response is also has a play. Now, SOAR as a solution mechanism has slightly different meanings when we talk about Defender XDR or when we talk about at the SIM level, which is the Azure Sentinel. Now, at the XDR level, the SOAR is a more of an inbuilt solution and inbuilt automated playbooks, which Microsoft engineering has curated because of the deep understanding of the individual solutions which power the XDR, and exactly what exactly is an anomaly, how to detect threats, how to how to aggregate alerts, derive an incident, create the entire narrative and story. And then the security orchestration and response literally understands what exactly has to be done in terms of doing deep investigation, further drilling of the matter, and also ensuring remediation, whether it's automated or a semi-automated. So mostly it's all about automated SOAR with built-in playbooks to reduce the overall effort of managing security operations with the support of XDR. The same SOAR at the Azure Sentinel level is all about creating, playbooks directly with your skill, playbooks in which you can really carve out innovative workflows and orchestration, and through simple or complex means, basis your skill available, and also take the community support. There's a lot of playbooks and automations available through the Microsoft GitHub community, which can help you be really creative about how best you can leverage SOAR built into Azure in a raw manner, and you can be articulative and really create out different set of playbooks logic. So there are different approaches of SOAR which acts at both the XDR level and the SIEM level from Microsoft. Along with that, and there is also first-party additional expert assistance available, which can empower the security operations with the support of Microsoft Threat Experts, which is a 24/7 service available for Microsoft, which is looking over your anonymous data, and our threat experts are generating insights and making you available those alerts, curated alerts, basis their intelligence and understanding of your ecosystem and what they're seeing as anomalies. So that capability is also available. Apart from that, we also have the incident response and recovery service, which is powered by our services team and Dart team, which can come to your support in case of a situation like a compromise. And apart from that, there is a vibrant ecosystem of Microsoft managed security partners. The list which you're seeing is a very small. There is a large, vibrant, ecosystem of capable security services partner, which can really, help you manage your SOC, and that's also available. And these are, very capable players who really understand Microsoft solutions, and and integrate with the third-party security solutions to, bring overall SOC manageability and support to you as well. This is how we see a more modern SOC architecture looks like. Let's go a bit deep into the case of XDR and Sentinel in terms of the how exactly the capabilities are laid out. Okay, so let's start with the case for XDR. What exactly the constructs are, how exactly the overall benefits are coming, and why exactly it is even needed. Let's discuss that as well. So I'll take an analogy of attacker being a dragon who is flying over various services and information silos and your infrastructure. Attacker acts like this. They are literally not bound by anything, from a role or responsibility perspective or a data privacy or regulations. They just use any means which they can jump across infrastructure to infrastructure, service to service, user to user, and endpoint to endpoint, just thus making sure they can do maximum damage. And literally, the defenders are like this, knight who may be often restricted by silos of information and security solutions through the different consoles they have to operate, and they have to jump from pylon to pylon, figuring out and keep up with the attack surface, and definitely create a response mechanism. And if a lot of these services and security solutions are not very integrated together, it can be a very difficult job for the defender to keep up with the attacker. And that's a problem statement, where. And one of the biggest challenges also that all of these security solutions, looking at from the point of identity, endpoint, email, collaboration, application, hybrid infrastructure, these solutions inherently can have different attributes and conventions in terms of alerts and incidents and just about everything else. Like entity mapping is a big challenge. Like IP addresses, computer names, device ID, emails, users. A lot of these, the way a lot of these solutions use these different entities in a different manner creates challenges of mapping and figuring out a common set of anomalies and anomalous patterns across these different set of solutions in lack of a common normalization which may not exist. And if you have to do on your own, at the SIEM level, it becomes very, very difficult. Apart from that, reporting approaches are also often different across these solutions. If you look up out from an endpoint, it can be very detailed kind of reporting, endpoint type of solution, secure endpoint security solution. A solution which is acting at the INT level may focus on deep qualitative reporting. Like, so different approaches to, looking at the same set of and similar set of data types, alerting mechanisms, and can have different meanings across different solutions. So that normalizations also may not exist, creating the job, a very difficult if we are, operating on this, data, raw data at the same level. So how exactly the Defender XDR are trying to solve the problem? First of all, you know, um, the majority of the solution which Defender XDR is interconnecting, which is the combination of Microsoft, ATP solutions which act on, email, Active Directory Network, EDR, endpoint, CASB, in hybrid infrastructure security solutions like, Azure Defender. Microsoft Engineering has really integrated all of these solutions through the API layer. So these solutions fundamentally understand each other and are tightly connected to each other, and they share signals. That's the first very important part of how the XDR is operating. The solutions fundamentally understand each other. Secondly, the unification of entity definitions is one of the most important aspects. Whether it's the reputation of the users, machines, emails, IP addresses, all of these things have to be normalized across these solutions to create a uniform plane of understanding of what's happening at the event level. If this is, I mean, and this is a very intricate and difficult job which engineering has done and achieved to ensure a uniform plane of understanding of how things are occurring. If the same task is done at the same level, it really would require a lot of skill across a variety of solutions, which XDR as a solution, reduces the overall effort. So that is a big part. Thirdly, the schematics of, what exactly is an event, what exactly is an alert, what exactly is an incident, how all of these things map across the common, integrated solution plane, basis which the correlation, the prioritization, orchestration can happen. That's a very, important activity which also the engineering has done, because every solution has a different way of understanding and reporting even alert and incident. And because of that, complexity, things may go unreported, unnoticed, because, if it's a whole story which needs to be stitched together, sometimes an event is part of a larger incident which has to be taken into consideration. So all of those things, require an effort to integrate all of these elements across the solutions to create a unified management plane. And definitely the security orchestration layer has as important play. Orchestration working at the XDR level, orchestration working at the SIEM level, like in Azure Sentinel. Now here, as we discuss, the security orchestration automated response at the XDR level is focused on common set of unified, patterns of activities which can be easily dealt and automated, reducing the load on the security operations. This has been, curated basis years of learning of understanding how these common attack patterns are and how exactly, these things can be addressed at this layer. Now, this becomes very fundamentally important, because if the analyst has to really every time respond to every activity and figure out a response mechanism, the load of the alerts volume would be unprecedented. And that's where across the common set of these response behavior, the XDR really attempts to reduce the overall load. While at the same level, the security orchestration and automation is focused on really raw playbooks which you as a capable security analyst can create and really be articulated about the far reaches of the capabilities of the solution in terms of orchestrating an overall response, because it's a very capable source solution in that respect. So different objectives. um, so XDR is built-in SOAR, automated SOAR, and at SIEM level, the SOAR is more, it's a raw orchestration mechanism which you can be creative about creating directly on your own. Now let's discuss, some of these areas more in depth from a event and an alert mechanism and orchestration at the XDR level, how some of these things are done slightly in more detail. So let's start with, incident management handling event data correlation, how exactly XDR is doing something, which is different from the way you would do at the SIEM level. Let's start with that. Now, incident is a very important item, because incident holds the truth about how an XDR really understands the various security solutions it is ensuring integration across to build an overall story together. The first part is ensuring that equal prioritization of event versus alert can happen across something of an attack pattern which an XDR is noticing. Okay. And this happens, because, two things joined together may form, which needs equal priority. Say, for example, a missed email alert, a missed email threat, which, definitely is noticed at the email security layer, when a user opens it on the endpoint, clicks on the phishing link, that may be just an event from an endpoint perspective. But both these events together need same priority, though one is an alert and other is an event. Now, XDR fundamentally understands this nuance and ensures that the various events versus alerts are getting equal priority if they're part of a single incident. And that's where the overall narration of the story comes in. And secondly, in order to navigate the attack investigation in a faster manner, the XDR has to create a overall story stitching together so that analysts can understand, so that the reduction of overall correlation requirement can be reduced. And that's very important. That is essentially a big insight which XDR brings into the table. And definitely the response orchestration, which is the built-in automated or semi-automated, that's also becomes very important. Now, allow us understand this as part of a full multi-stage attack. Now, let's understand this attack to a bit. This involves at the email layer, attacker has sent a spearfish. The email link has been clicked on the endpoint, which downloaded a weaponized document, which led to mimikatz running and executing on the machine. After that, there is credential theft which happens on the machine, which leads to privilege escalation, further reconnaissance done by the attacker, and the lateral movement happening across the infrastructure. And then finally, it is leading to data exfiltration. Now, all of these um, activities, if you see, it's a combination of alert insights, coming across multiple, security solutions if they, if they are not integrated, and there are events also happening, events. I mean, events which have not reached an alert stage, but definitely they are being noticed. Now, classic correlation logic, if you see, may see all of these as different incidents altogether, because the bare metal correlation logic will say, okay, fine, because these are existing and happening in different set of security solutions, and probably they're happening at the same time across a set of machines and and accounts. Let me correlate these incidents in togetherness. But because the solutions, all of these solutions are not necessarily integrated together, fundamental creating the entire story that often lacks. And that's exactly how a typical correlation logic works, in lack of when the solutions are not well integrated together. From an XDR approach, how things are being done differently is because of the fundamental understanding of the solution itself. Okay, because all of these solutions are intricately connected to each other, and there is a fundamental understanding which has been created by the normalization effort of events, alerts, incidents, entities, everything, so that the entire solution and the response and the events getting created across every solution, they're understood as a single incident, because each and every aspect is getting followed by the XDR as a whole, and the solutions which are empowered, the security solutions from Microsoft which are powering it, have been normalized so that each and every aspect can be correlated in togetherness, and which is very important from a stitching story perspective, because now, because of this fundamental integration, even the events which are part of the larger incident are now converted to alert, and now a better story narration in a single incident can happen. That's a big fundamental differentiation which XDR is bringing in with the natively, which can be a very difficult and very heavy effort if you really want to, try to do at the SIM level, because uh, just because of the fundamental nature of, not having deep understanding of the solution itself. So a lot of heavy lifting has to be done. So that's the whole idea of how exactly the XDR approach is making a difference here. A classic case of Mitra, APT29, attack, a variation of that, if that case is studied, if a variation of that attack is studied under the XDR pillar, this is how in a single incident, the XDR has mapped the entire, event chain, I would say alert chain, with the correlation across the various, different security solutions which the XDR is seeing. So this is a very nice view of how exactly, a complex multi-stage attack can be stitched together in a single story. And that is the big difference which XDR tries to make, and reducing the overall job at the security operations level. Now let's also understand automation as well, how exactly automation is working at this layer as well. Now, again, this is the XDR view. First of all, the incident is trying to create the entire narrative of how exactly we are looking at the entire incident. The storyline is being shown on the left side. The MITRE attack mapping is being shown as well. The number of entities which are impacted is also being shown here, giving a complete sense of what exactly is the impact we are looking at. The alert curation and the story navigation continues. And let's look at the automations which are also being fired. Now, automations, because of the fundamental nature of the created, at the XDR level, the automations are built in. They understand how exactly the solution, what trigger points in a solution can be utilized. Like if it's an email miss, searching for mails and, curating them within the system in togetherness for cleaning them out because it's a missed email thread. If it's an endpoint, really go deep investigation at the endpoint with the help of AI to really understand the various dependencies from the threat which has been inculcating. Some of the like automations have been automatically remediated depending on the type of automation job fired. Some of the automations may wait for the security operator to acknowledge. And if you look here, at the endpoint, this particular automation is really looking at the various aspects of file processes, services, drivers, IP address, and user activity dependencies, and it has curated that across multiple users using the system. Two users are ones which are compromised, and asking the security analyst to approve that these users are definitely compromised, so that the response behavior on fundamentally, targeting the user for self-service password reset can also be initiated as a workflow. So this is also a common example of a semi-automation workflow, which can wait for a security operations response for taking the next step. Some of the jobs can automatically do the remediation depending on the scenario as well. So this was a classic case of how exactly XDR is making a difference in reducing the overall load. Let's get back to the overall security operations view, and now understand the exact entire landscape through the eyes of the modern SIEM like Azure Sentinel in the same sense. So let's jump into the case for Azure Sentinel, the modern SIEM. Now, how exactly the role of a SIEM is changing in the modern SOC? There are certain imperatives for the a traditional SIEM, which has always been across security governance, detection, response, and recovery and hunting. These are the classic imperatives which have been always part of the SOC mission and core objectives of the SIEM as well. From a modernization perspective, we can take phases. First phase can be additional specialized tools which can reduce the overall load. And we discussed about them as well. Things like EDR, XDR, CASB, a lot of these ADP solutions. All of these solutions, they help reduce the time it takes for the analysts to, if they are sitting on raw log data, it really takes time, and a lot of skills to manage that effort. And if that effort can be reduced when these solutions act upon these vectors and layers of services and solutions. Whatever insights they curate, that insight can then be correlated with the remainder insights from the which are not impacted by the specialized tools. So all of these things can be aggregated at the SIEM layer to reduce the overall effort but for the security operation. And then also augment the SIEM with more modern technologies like AI, ML, UEBA, and even security orchestration and automated response source solution. Now, in a classic SIEM, some of these capabilities need to be added as modules. It may come from additional third-party solution space, but a capable modern SIEM like Azure Sentinel has all of these capabilities and much more as such. And third area would be to optimize the data operations. The data operations, which often the data and the on which is addressed and taken by the SIEM. Oftentimes, the need of the data aggregation is required by both IT and security, and oftentimes, the data gets replicated if it's not optimized. So one of the big imperatives here has to be also to look at ways of optimizing where a common data set can be tapped by both IT and security for the individual requirements in a role-based access controls, ensuring good well-laid boundary of management and optimizing, because this is a lot of data on which SIEM has to decide, and if this data has to be processed separately, it will, and kept separately, retained separately, it may require a lot of additional investments to just maintain that. So these areas should be looked at from an overall optimization perspective. Continuing on building a strategy on the overall operational data, first of all, fundamental requirement is to ensure we have the use cases laid out. And these use cases can only be acted well if the critical translation data, like from identity and DNS, oftentimes it is not done because the user identity normalization, and we probably are just sitting on a bunch of IP addresses, or if the IP addresses belong to the same machine. I know all of those data, if they are not curated well, it can definitely lead to a lot of confusion in terms of managing the overall experience. So while use cases have to be applied, translation data is very important to ensure a clarity is there on what exactly is happening. Now, all of the approach has to be adapted to a certain framework, and MITRA framework and attack framework it can be a classic example where fundamental understanding of what all is happening can be mapped to that framework in terms of overall SOC operation. It's an important objective. Now, prioritization of what to what particular threat patterns to look at first. Threat patterns which are common and easy for the attacker should be looked first. If the attacker would have easy ways to launch an attack basis your infrastructure, depending on that, so those use cases should be targeted first, because your environment may be susceptible to that mostly. And if you already are aware of common patterns of attack which have happened in the past, those use cases should be taken first. Apart from that, a lot of community effort may already have gone in terms of the use cases, toolset availability, dashboards, connectors, ML model, correlation logic, detection logic. There's a lot of community effort which goes in curating that, and you can repurpose, study and repurpose that into your SOC. And a classic example in Microsoft case is the entire GitHub community, which is part of the Sentinel. And there is a vibrant ecosystem of the Microsoft and the community effort to ensure common knowledge sharing can be done to reduce the overall applicability of these use cases. Tools strategy is very important, because um, uh, our recommendation is to focus on specialized tools first, to ensure if you have to do everything on the raw data, the biggest problem of fundamentally understanding how these individual solutions operate and what to look for And if in case you don't have a specialized solution, that will become a big burden in terms of heavy lifting. Oftentimes we see customers will ingest raw 365 data, but then what exactly to do with this data, how exactly these services are used, what to look for within these services, what can be anomaly, how to study these correlation patterns. It can be a very heavy lifting job. A classic example of a specialized solution can be a CASB, which fundamentally understands, SaaS solutions, including O365, and it already has the correlation built-in detection logic and a detection and the response logic as well. And it can really reduce the overall effort and create an insight, which can then be sent to SIEM, and the SIEM can, marry that insight with the remainder of the overall log and event ecosystem, which is, it is sitting on. So priority should be given on the specialized tools to reduce the overall, effort to figure out anomalous patterns at the SIM level. So a specialized tool and then the SIM logic applicable on the remainder of the data should be a great tool strategy. And then the data strategy also, overall data, which data sources on which the analytics have to be applied, where exactly are the data storage requirements, data ownership, privacy, role base, all of those things naturally fit into the same ecosystem. Now that's where we bring in the aspect of what Sentinel is all about. Sentinel is a very modern and capable SIEM powered by the limitless Microsoft Azure cloud. It has variety of data connectors built in, which have built-in security dashboard, reducing the effort of repurposing what you're connecting to. Threat hunting mechanism. It uses Azure ML, Azure ML service, and you can even bring your own ML and train the models through Jupyter notebooks. It has UEBA, and you can ingest third-party intelligence. A lot of capabilities are built into this SIEM natively. Apart from that, it is powered by the Azure Logic Apps and the vast log analytics platform of Azure. The Logic Apps are bringing the SOAR orchestration, which is part of the Azure Sentinel. In terms of SOAR orchestration, let's just click on that. Here is a classic playbook where Azure Logic Labs is empowering the SOAR platform Sentinel, where you can be really creative of the workflows because it has a great GUI mechanism in which multiple simple and complex conditional logic and outcomes can be driven, and there are a lot of library samples available, including GitHub. It has 200 plus various connectors to various applications, really bring a lot of insight there. So continuing on the Azure Sentinel, it is also sits on creates activity logs, which is also connected to Azure Monitor, which helps IT and DevOps operations as well. On the left hand side are the different connectors and the ecosystem, third party and Microsoft native, Microsoft XDR, Azure Security Center, and also powered by the Intelligent Security Graph. Now, all of these capabilities make Azure Sentinel a pretty powerful platform. And then there is a GitHub community in which a lot of community work has already happened, thus reducing the overall load in terms of getting started, because a lot of the detection models, playbooks, ML dashboards are built in, are already provided by the community so that you can repurpose them. So this is very short summary of what Azure Sentinel constructs are and how makes it a very capable SIEM and modern SIEM. So again, we are revisiting the overall security operations framework, and this is the summary of what we have discussed up till now. So with this, we come to the end of the session. We are also sharing a lot of our experience and insights by the Microsoft Security Operations, which is the Microsoft Cyber Defense Operations Center, and our digital security and risk engineering teams. So they have published a series of blogs in which their own experience and insights are captured, which can really help you plan out and modernize your security operations effort. So this presentation will be shared as part of this session collateral. So please do download the presentation and use these links. With that, I would like to really thank you for staying with us and listening to our overall, strategy and story around modernizing, security operations. Thank you and have a nice day.